Welcome, seekers of myth and guardians of story. Today, we journey not into the twilight of the gods, but to the dawn of their glory, to a time when Asgard was young, fragile and unguarded, before its golden halls could shine across the 9 realms. The gods faced a perilous bargain, the building of walls so mighty, no giant could breach them, and no army could ever storm their gates. This tale is not merely about stone and mortar, but about pride and fear, oaths and betrayal, cunning and consequence. You will walk beside Odin as he weighs wisdom against risk, stand with Thor as his rage burns hotter than fire, and follow Loki as his tricks spiral into destiny. You will see the sweat of giants, the strength of horses, and the whispers of fate woven into every stone laid in Asgard's wall. What begins as a promise of safety becomes a battle of wits, a test of trust, and the birth of a creature unlike any other. The 8-legged steed Sleipnir, born of deceit yet destined for greatness. Take your place, for the saga begins. Welcome to the building of Asgard's walls. Imagine a fortress so mighty, it could shield the gods themselves from chaos. Imagine a wager where the price of failure is the sun, the moon, and Freyja herself. This is not just the tale of Asgard's walls. It is the tale of deception, desperation, and destiny. Subscribe for more history, like and comment. If you believe history should never be forgotten, and share to spark conversation about the lessons we must learn from the past. This is not myth, this is history. And it begins here, before the golden glory of Asgard was secure, before its halls shone like sunlight. Across the 9 realms, the gods lived in unease. Their realm was young, their power vast. Yet their borders lay bare against the wrath of their enemies. The Jotnar, giants of frost and stone, watched from the edges of the world, jealous of the Aesir's rising dominion. From Jotunheim, their roars carried across mountains, promising vengeance. Mortals in Midgard whispered of shadows stirring beyond the horizon. Even the heavens seemed unsettled, as if the cosmos itself held its breath. Asgard stood open. Its halls were bright, but no walls rose to shield them. The gods feasted, but each clutched weapons at their side. Thor, restless as always, paced with Mjolnir in hand, vowing that no giant would cross into the home of the Aesir. Yet even his might could not guard all paths. Freyja, radiant, gazed at the horizon with unease, for she knew her beauty was coveted by enemies beyond count. Odin, seated high in Valaskjalf, his single eye piercing all, saw what his companions refused to admit aloud. Without fortifications, Asgard could fall. The gods were mighty, but they were few, and the giants were endless. A council was called, the Long Tables of Asgard, filled with voices both fierce and fearful. Tyr spoke of valor, insisting they would fight any who came. Heimdall, ever watchful, warned that no vigilance could stop what was inevitable. Even the keen-eyed guardian knew that sight was not enough. Walls must rise. But the Aesir were torn. They were gods of war, of storm, of love, of beauty. They were not builders. To shape a fortress worthy of their realm, they would need aid. Yet, who among the 9 realms could they trust? Giants had the strength, dwarves the craft, elves the light, but all had their own desires. As voices clashed, Odin raised his hand. Silence fell. His voice carried like thunder wrapped in calm. Kai, we stand at the dawn of our age, yet dawn is fragile. Without walls, our halls are prey. We must seek a way, no matter the cost. For Asgard must endure. Thus the seed was planted. The gods, mighty though they were, admitted their weakness. Their realm was vulnerable. They longed for walls, great walls, unbreachable, eternal. But how such walls would be built and at what cost, none yet knew. And in that silence, fate stirred. For when gods desire, destiny answers. And not always kindly, the great hall of Gladsheim, filled with the voices of gods. Around the long table the Aesir gathered, warriors, seers, and keepers of fate, each carrying their own fear, each cloaking it in pride. The matter of Asgard's walls pressed heavy upon them. Threther struck the table with his fist, Mjolnir rattling in its place. "I need no walls. My hammer will crush any giant fool enough to set foot in Asgard." His eyes blazed, but his words were met with silence. They all knew his strength was vast, but even Thor could not be everywhere at once. Freyja, her golden necklace Brisingamen glittering, spoke softly yet firmly. "And when you tire, Thor, when the giants come not in twos or tens, but in hundreds, Asgard's beauty cannot be defended by rage alone. We need walls, or we risk all." Her words carried weight, for it was she whom the giants coveted most. Tyr rose, his voice solemn. "Walls may shield, but courage wins wars. Yet even I cannot deny. We are too few, and our foes are endless." From the corner, Heimdall spoke, his tone calm, his eyes like piercing dawn. "I watch the 9 realms. I see the giants stirring, gathering strength. No horn, no sword, no hammer can guard every path. Without walls, Asgard will fall." At last, all eyes turned to Odin. He sat silent, his hand on Gungnir, his single eye gleaming with thought. The Allfather's mind ran deeper than words. He had wandered far, drunk from Mimir's well, paid with his own eye for wisdom. And what he saw was grim truth. Finally, Odin spoke. "Walls we must have. But who shall build them? Not dwarves, for they demand treasures. Not elves, for their craft is too delicate. Not gods, for we are not makers of stone. We must look outward, to those with strength beyond ours." A hush fell. To look outward was to look toward danger. The Jotnar had the might, but also the malice. Still, Odin's words carried no doubt. The decision had been made. So the gods resolved. A builder would be sought, one with the strength to raise fortifications worthy of Asgard. Yet none could guess what fate such a choice would invite. Not many days passed before an answer came. One dawn, as mist curled over Asgard's open fields, a figure appeared at the gates. Tall as a tower, broad as a mountain, he carried neither shield nor spear, but tools of stone and iron. His eyes glowed like embers beneath a heavy brow, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am a builder," he declared. "I hear your need. I offer to raise walls around Asgard. Walls so strong that no giant, no beast, no foe shall ever breach them." The gods gathered in wonder and unease. Thor scowled, his hand tightening around Mjolnir. "And why should we trust a stranger so tall and grim? You reek of Jotunheim." The builder did not deny it. "Perhaps I have giant's blood. Yet judge me by my craft, not my kin. I ask for fair payment, and I will give you walls unmatched." At this, the Aesir stirred. For though wary, they had prayed for an answer, and now one stood before them. Still, suspicion ran deep. Freyja turned her gaze away, sensing danger. Odin studied the builder with his piercing eye, seeking truth beyond words. Finally, the builder spoke his demand. "For my work, I ask 3 things. The sun, the moon, and Freyja as my bride." The hall erupted. Thor leapt to his feet, roaring, "I will smash you into dust before I give my sister to a stranger, let alone a giant." Freyja's face burned with rage and shame. Even the calmer gods muttered in fury at the boldness of the request. But Odin raised his hand, silencing the uproar. His eye narrowed. Here stood both peril and opportunity. For though the price was impossible, the promise was great. "Your demand is bold," Odin said. "We will consider it, but only if the terms suit us." The builder bowed, awaiting their answer. His presence loomed like a storm cloud over the council. And thus the bargain's seed was planted. Though none yet knew the price, the hall rang with outrage. Never had a demand so audacious been spoken in Asgard. The sun and moon, treasures of the sky, belonged not to any one god, but to the order of the cosmos itself. And Freyja, the jewel of the Aesir, the goddess of love and beauty, was demanded as if she were a prize in a game of dice. Threthta's roar shook the rafters. "I will break every bone in his body before he lays a hand on Freyja, or steals the sky's light from Midgard's children." Mjolnir flashed in his grip, thunder rumbling in sympathy with his wrath. Freyja's voice, sharp as steel, cut through the uproar. "I will not be bargained, nor given, nor sold. I am no token for giants' games." Her eyes burned golden and fierce, yet beneath her fury trembled fear. For she knew how the Aesir's need might outweigh her dignity. The gods argued. Tyr pressed for honor, refusing to submit to such theft. Heimdall warned of cunning traps. The builder's price is meant to divide us, to sow discord. Bragi, god of poetry, murmured that even songs would fall silent if the sun and moon were lost. Through it all, Odin sat silent, his one eye shadowed. He knew too well the danger. Without walls, Asgard would fall. With them, they might endure. Yet the builder's demand was no payment, but a ransom for the very soul of the cosmos. The builder stood calm, unmoved by their fury. "My price is fair. For my strength and my stallion's power, I will build your walls. Deny me, and I shall walk away, leaving you as exposed as before." The gods seethed, torn between need and outrage. They looked to Odin for judgment, but even the Allfather hesitated. The fate of Asgard trembled between refusal and desperate compromise. And in that silence, another voice rose, the voice of cunning. Into the storm of voices, Loki stepped forward. The trickster, sly-smiled and sharp-eyed, had sat silent till now, watching gods rage and despair. He raised his hands, his tone smooth, cutting through the hall like a whisper of wind. "Why do we rage at the impossible?" Loki asked. "Yes, the builder's price is high, too high. But what if he cannot win it? What if we craft the bargain so cunningly? He labors in vain. Let him try, let him break his back, and when he fails, as surely he must, we shall owe him nothing, and yet Asgard shall have its walls begun." The gods turned toward him, suspicion and curiosity mingling. Thor snarled, "And if he succeeds, trickster? What then?" When the sun is gone, the moon swallowed, and Freyja dragged to his bed. Loki's grin widened. "Then we ensure he cannot. We bind him with terms so harsh that not even a giant with a stallion's strength could complete the task. We let him sweat, let him bleed, let him believe he nears victory. Then, at the last, we deny him. Have you so little faith in cunning?" Freyja's eyes narrowed. "You gamble with me, Loki. Do you expect me to smile as I am dangled like bait?" He bowed mockingly. "I expect you to trust that I will not let him claim you. I am many things, Freyja, but I am no fool to give away our brightest jewel. Trust in my wit, if not my honor," the gods muttered. Tyr spat that deceit was unworthy of the Aesir. Bragi warned that trickery leaves bitter songs. Yet Heimdall, watchful as ever, admitted, better deceit than defeat. Finally, Odin rose, his gaze fixed on Loki, searching not for truth, but for possibility. You speak of cunning, where strength and courage cannot serve, and perhaps Asgard must learn to bend if it is to endure. He turned to the council. We shall bargain. The builder may build, but he will have one winter only, and no hand but his own to aid him. If by the first day of summer the walls are not complete, he shall leave with nothing. The builder bowed his great head, his ember eyes gleaming. Agreed, he rumbled. Thus, by Loki's counsel, the gods sealed their fate. For cunning had triumphed over pride, and yet cunning, once invited, is never easily dismissed. The hall of Gladsheim fell silent after Odin's decree. The terms were spoken, one winter only. No tools but his own hands. No, but what beasts he might command. If by the first day of summer the walls of Asgard were not complete, the builder would depart empty-handed. The gods exchanged uneasy glances. Their fury had cooled, replaced by wary hope. Loki's smirk lingered in the corners of the hall, a gleam of triumph in his eyes. The builder bowed his head, his ember gaze unblinking. I accept, he rumbled. His voice shook the very beams of the hall. When summer dawns, your fortress shall stand. Freyja's lips tightened. She turned her eyes away, but not before. Loki caught the flash of dread in them. Thor muttered, let him try. He will break before spring. Yet even he clutched Mjolnir tighter, uneasy at the giant's calm. Odin rose from his throne. He took Gungnir, his spear, and struck the ground once, sealing the oath. The sound rolled through Asgard like thunder. So it is bound. The builder shall labor, and the Aesir shall watch. But know this, if you falter, you leave with nothing. And if you deceive us, you shall meet Thor's hammer. The builder bowed again. No fear crossed his face. Then let the work begin. Outside, the air chilled. Winter wrapped Asgard in frost, snow falling heavy as a veil. Yet, where most saw hardship, the builder saw only strength. He turned from the god's hall, shoulders broad, eyes glowing, already measuring the stones that would form Asgard's mightiest defense. The gods returned to their seats, uneasy but resolved. Loki, leaning against a pillar, whispered to himself, let him labor. When he fails, the walls will stand, and the gods will owe him nothing. But prophecy and pride are dangerous companions. And even Loki did not yet see the full price of his counsel. Winter's breath howled across Asgard, but the builder began his task at once. He strode into the forests and mountains, his steps shaking the earth. Where the gods thought he would falter, he astonished them instead. He lifted stones larger than halls, each weighing more than 100 men could move. His hands, calloused and immense, gripped boulders as though they were pebbles. He stacked them with precision, his work rising day by day, night by night. Snow and frost lashed his back, but he did not slow, and yet it was not his strength alone. By his side labored Svadilfari, a stallion, unlike any other. Its coat gleamed silver beneath moonlight, its muscles rippling with tireless power. The horse hauled stones the size of mountains, dragging them across snow and ice as though they were feathers. Together, giant and steed built walls that defied imagination. From Asgard's halls, the gods watched with growing unease. Thor scowled at the sight, muttering that no beast should bear such strength. Freyja's fear deepened, for the wall rose too quickly. Even Odin's face darkened, his eye narrowing as he watched the giant's progress. Loki, though outwardly calm, felt unease coil in his chest. His scheme had been meant to amuse, to trick a fool into failure. But the builder was no fool. The stones rose higher with each passing night, forming towers that could withstand an army of giants. The gods gathered often to watch, their voices hushed. Tyr shook his head. Heimdall whispered that the work might truly be done before spring. Bragi murmured that even his songs could not capture the stallion's beauty and strength. Still the builder labored, never pausing, never faltering, his eyes fixed on victory. And as the walls grew, so did the gods' dread. Winter was long, but the builder's strength was longer. With each stone laid, the fate of Asgard tightened like a noose. Of all the wonders in the 9 realms, none astonished the gods more than Svadilfari, the stallion of the builder. Stronger than any beast, swifter than any herd, it moved with grace and power, as though the earth itself bent to its will. Each day, while the giant lifted stones, Svadilfari dragged boulders heavier than mountains across the snow. Its hooves struck sparks upon the frozen ground, its breath steamed like a forge. No whip drove it, no rope bound it. It worked willingly, eyes glowing with tireless devotion to its master's task. The gods watched in awe and dread. Thor clenched his fists, muttering that such a beast must be unnatural, perhaps birthed of giant magic. Freyja trembled, for with each boulder hauled, the wall grew higher. Heimdall swore that no horse had ever been born of this world. Loki alone pretended calm, but in his heart he seethed. He had promised the builder would fail, yet it was the stallion that made success possible. Without Svadilfari, the wall would remain a dream. With him, it neared completion. By moonlight, the horse labored. By dawn, stones towered above the fields. The wall was no simple barrier, but a fortress, strong enough to defy even Ragnarok itself. Whispers spread among the gods. Some muttered of slaying the horse, others of breaking the bargain. But oaths bound them still, and Odin's gaze held them silent. For the Allfather knew that to break their word would stain the honor of Asgard. Thus the stallion labored on, proud and tireless, each hoofbeat echoing doom. Day after day, the wall of Asgard rose higher. Stone by stone, Svadilfari and his master built towers that gleamed white with frost, strong enough to withstand storms and sieges. The builder shaped the stones with hands like hammers, fitting each block with impossible precision. Soon the foundations circled the plain, enclosing Asgard in strength. The gods marveled despite themselves. What they had dreamed, protection from giants, a fortress that could endure the ages, took shape before their eyes. But awe soon turned to dread, for the work advanced too swiftly. By the middle of winter, the wall stood half complete. By the waning moon, only the highest ramparts remained. Heimdall whispered that if the work continued, the builder might finish before spring. Tyr struck his sword against the ground, swearing that the gods had been deceived. Thretha's fury boiled hotter each day, but Odin restrained him with a glance. Freyja grew pale, her beauty shadowed by fear. She dreamed of chains binding her, of the sun and moon torn from the sky. Even Bragi's songs grew somber, no longer praising the wall but lamenting its price. And still the stones rose. Each block was vast, yet the wall grew seamless. No army could climb it, no weapon could break it. The gods saw their salvation, and their doom in every stone in the shadows of the cool pace. He had promised this would be a jest, a trick at the builder's expense. Now he saw his scheme twisting into ruin. Without intervention, Asgard would lose more than it gained. The trickster's smile faltered, and in its place came a shadow of desperation. The stones of Asgard gleamed, but in their shadow, fear grew darker than ever before. As the wall of Asgard climbed higher, doubt spread through the halls of the gods like a creeping frost. What began as a gamble, a jest at the expense of a stranger, now weighed on them like a curse. By torchlight, The Aesir gathered in hushed councils. Heimdall reported each night how much of the wall had risen. The stones climb faster than the moon. By spring, Asgard will stand encircled. Thor pounded his fist against the table. It cannot be. This bargain was folly. We should have crushed the builder when he first demanded Freyja. Why do we bind ourselves with oaths to giants? Tyr shook his head, because an oath, once sworn, binds even gods. If we betray our word, the 9 realms will call us faithless. Our honor would fall lower than any wall. Freyja sat silent, her golden hair shadowing her face. She spoke no word, but her silence was heavier than Thor's rage. Odin, his single eye glinting beneath his hood, remained still. He had seen such snares before, victory that turned to doom, bargains that bound tighter than chains. Yet he also knew that the gods had chosen this path. To break it now would mean war with forces greater than they could endure. In the corner, Loki lounged with false ease. "Why so grim? Have you no faith in my cunning?" The builder works swiftly, yes, but the days of winter are short. He cannot finish all, and if he nears too close, well, I will think of something. But his words rang hollow. Even he felt the trap closing, thus doubt spread among the gods. Their laughter faded, their feasts grew quiet. Every stone added to the wall was a stone laid upon their hearts. Though all the gods feared the builder's progress, none felt the weight more than Freyja. Night after night, she dreamed of chains of ice binding her hands, of being led from Asgard, as spoils of a bargain gone wrong. In her dreams, the sun dimmed, the moon vanished, and she stood alone in a hall of shadows. By day, she walked Asgard's meadows, her steps slow, her eyes clouded. Once she had been the joy of the gods, her laughter ringing like bells. Now she was silent, her beauty a burden. Mortals prayed to her for love and fertility. But she herself felt only dread. She confronted Odin in his high seat. "You would trade me like a trinket for stones? Am I no more to you than mortar for a wall?" Odin did not meet her gaze. His voice was heavy. "No, Freyja, but without these walls, all Asgard is in peril. I would not see you taken, but I would not see Asgard fall." She turned from him, bitter tears upon her face. Thor tried to comfort her, vowing that his hammer would smash the builder before he laid claim. Yet even Thor could not promise against an oath sealed by Odin himself. In the council, Freyja's voice rose. "If this wall rises, my fate is sealed. You boast of honor, you cling to oaths, but where is your honor if you give away the unwilling?" The gods fell silent. None could answer her pain. Even Loki, usually quick with jest, said nothing. For though it had been his counsel that led to this trap, he too felt the shame of her words. Alone in her hall, Freyja prayed, not to herself, but to fate, to the unseen Norns who wove the threads. "If my beauty is a curse, let it be undone. If my life is a pawn, let it be spared." But the loom of fate gave no answer, only the echo of Svadilfari's hooves in the night, carrying doom closer with every step as the wall climbed ever higher. The gods' fears spread beyond Freyja's fate, for the builder's price was not only her hand, but the sun and the moon, the light of the heavens themselves. Night after night, the gods gazed upward and wondered, would they truly lose the treasures of the sky? Without the sun, Midgard's fields would wither, mortals starving in endless cold. Without the moon, tides would falter, wolves would howl unchecked, and the sky would be a void. Máni, the moon itself, trembled in its silver path. Though not mortal, it felt the weight of doom. In dreams, it saw chains of stone dragging it down to Jotunheim, its glow smothered in shadow. The sun shone dimmer, fearing a fate no fire could escape. The two celestial beings whispered to Odin in visions, their voices heavy with sorrow. Odin listened, grim and silent. The cosmos itself was at stake. To lose Freyja would wound Asgard, but to lose the sun and moon would unmake all 9 realms. In council, Heimdall spoke. I watch the skies as I watch the world. The light falters. If this bargain holds, even the heavens may fall. Thor cursed, vowing to tear the builder limb from limb. Tyr insisted their honor demanded they uphold the pact, unless it was broken. Freyja, pale, whispered only, "What light will remain if I am gone?" The gods fell into silence. Even Loki did not jest, for in that moment they realized the builder's victory would not only rob them of Dotte, a goddess, it would unravel the very order of the cosmos. Thor, son of Odin, grew restless as winter dragged on. Day by day, he watched the walls rise, stone by stone. The builder advanced, and always at his side labored Svadilfari, the tireless stallion. Suspicion gnawed at Thor's heart. He stormed into council, Mjolnir in hand, his voice like rolling thunder. This is no mortal builder. No man, no dwarf, no elf could raise such walls. The gods stirred at his words. Tyr frowned. If it is true, then our oath was made to a foe. Yet still it binds us. Heimdall nodded gravely. I, too, have seen his eyes burn like embers. He is not what he claims. You knew? And still you let him build? Are we fools to watch a giant raise walls around our own hall? When his work is done, he will not shield us. He will cage us. Freyja, pale as frost, murmured, "And I will be the price." Thor lifted Mjolnir, his knuckles white. "Then let me end this now. One blow, and his skull will crack like ice. One strike, and Asgard will be free." But Odin's voice thundered louder than Thor's rage. "No! An oath once sworn must hold until broken. If the builder fails, he leaves empty-handed. If he succeeds, then we must pay, or find another way. But if you break faith now, all the 9 realms will know the Esser as liars." Thrithter's face darkened, his rage held only by his father's command. He lowered the hammer, but his eyes never left the builder. And so Thor's suspicion grew into certainty. The wall was a trap, and only deceit could save them from deceit. While Thor raged and Freyja despaired, Odin withdrew into silence. From his high seat in Valaskjalf, beneath the roof of silver and gold, he gazed across the 9 realms with his single eye. His ravens, Hugin and Munin, flew far and wide, bringing him tidings of the builder's progress. Every report was the same. The wall rose higher. The stones fit so seamlessly, no weapon could crack them. The stallion, Svadilfari, dragged boulders through snow and storm, tireless as the moon. By each passing night, the barrier around Asgard neared completion. Odin's thoughts were heavy. He had bargained for wisdom before, sacrificed his eye at Mimir's well, hung upon Yggdrasil to drink the runes. He knew that bargains always had their price, and that deceit always bore fruit. Now he wondered what this wall meant to God, would instead bind. He saw beyond the present moment, glimpses of futures unspooling. He saw Asgard strong and proud, but he also saw cracks hidden within that strength. He saw giants raging at its gates, and he saw Ragnarok, a fire consuming all walls, no matter how high. Yet he kept his visions to himself. To speak them would only sow despair. The Aesir already quarreled like crows. Thor's fury threatened to shatter the pact. Freyja's anguish threatened to fracture unity. And Loki's cunning was both their salvation and their doom. Odin sat alone, stroking his beard, his eye glinting in shadow. Hugin landed on his shoulder, Munin at his knee. "Thought and memory," he whispered. "What price shall we pay for these stones?" The birds answered only with caws, their wings restless. Odin knew the truth. The wall was not the true danger. The danger was the deceit that had birthed it, and the deceit that would be required to escape it. Still he watched, silent and grim, as the builder's hands shaped Asgard's fate stone by stone. Among the gods, none squirmed more than Loki. It had been his counsel that sealed the bargain, his cunning that convinced the Aesir to allow the builder his chance. He had promised the terms would be impossible. Yet night after night, the stones rose higher, and Loki's grin grew tighter. He watched from the walls, arms folded, as Svadilfari strained against harness, dragging stones that shook the earth. "A horse," Loki muttered, "a cursed horse. Without it, the giant would falter. But with it," his voice trailed, lips pressed thin, the other gods glared at him in council. Freyja's eyes burned with accusation. Thor nearly struck him, calling him serpent-tongued. Even Tyr muttered that it was Loki's folly that had bound them all. Yet Loki only laughed, though it rang hollow. "You think me careless? Trust that I have ways yet. No giant will claim Freyja. Not while Loki lives, but in his chamber alone, he passed like a wolf in a cage. He knew his tricks could turn tide and fortune. Yet this task was greater than a jest. The stallion could not be outmatched by strength, nor by words. To unravel this bargain, Loki would need to risk more than lies, to piercing through. For the first time in many ages, the trickster doubted himself. He felt the weight of his jest turning to chains. If he failed, he would not only lose his standing among the gods, he would die, be cursed as the one who gave Freyja to a giant, who let the sun and moon fall into darkness. At night, he lay awake, hearing in the distance the thunder of Svadilfari's hooves. Each strike was a heartbeat of doom, echoing louder in Loki's mind than any horn of war. He whispered to himself, "If wit cannot save us, then I must become more than wit. The game has teeth, and soon so must I." Thus, Loki's unease grew into a desperate resolve. Snow lay heavy upon the fields of Asgard, muffling the land in white silence. The final days of winter crept nearer, each dawn shorter, each night longer, and with every passing hour, the builder's work advanced. The gods gathered often upon the half-finished wall, cloaks pulled tight against the frost. They watched as the giant and Svadilfari labored through blizzard and storm. Neither wearied, neither faltered. Stones rose higher until the fortress of Asgard nearly enclosed the realm. Heimdall spoke grimly. "The first day of summer comes swiftly. By then his task may be done." Freyja's face was pale. Her lips trembling with prayers, she dared not speak aloud. She had stopped adorning herself in jewels. What was beauty worth if it would be sold like a dowry to a giant? Threster raged, pacing along the snowy ramparts. "Give me leave, Allfather, and I will end this now. One strike of Mjolnir and his skull will split. I care not for oaths to giants." But Odin, cloaked in shadow, forbade him still. "No, Thor. An oath broken brings dishonor greater than death. We must endure until he falters." Loki, who had once laughed, now muttered to himself. His sharp eyes watched Svadilfari with unease. "It is the horse. Without it, the giant would fail. Curse the beast. It labors with the strength of 10 armies." The gods spoke less and less as winter waned. Fear bound their tongues. Every hoof-beat of Svadilfari was a drumbeat of doom, echoing through their dreams. At last, the last moon of winter waned. Only a handful of nights remained before the bargain's end, and the wall, tall and seamless, awaited only its crowning stones. The wall of Asgard loomed nearly finished. Only the highest battlements remained, stones stacked higher than the tallest hall. By torchlight, the builder worked without rest. His great hands lifted blocks the size of wagons, fitting them with such skill that no crack could be seen. Beside him, Svadilfari strained against the harness, dragging boulders across frozen ground. The stallion's breath rose like smoke, its hooves pounded like drums, its muscles rippled like rivers of iron. The gods watched from afar, their hearts sinking with each stone laid. Tyr spoke in despair. By oath we are bound, and by oath we are undone. The builder will win. Freyja shuddered, whispering, I feel chains already at my wrists. Thord's fury boiled hotter than the forge of dwarves. Enough! If this giant dares claim Freyja, I will tear the walls down stone by stone, oath or no oath. Lightning cracked from Mjolnir. As if in answer to his rage, Odin remained grimly silent, though his eye glimmered with foreboding. He had seen bargains twist before. He knew the breaking point was near. But whether it would be salvation or ruin, he could not yet say. Loki alone forced a smile, though sweat glistened at his brow. Patience, friends. Not all games end as they seem. The last stones are the hardest. Perhaps fate has one more jest to play. His words rang hollow, and the gods glared, knowing it was his cunning that had led them here. Night fell. The wall's shadow stretched across Asgard, long and dark. By dawn the builder might complete his task, and with it, the god's doom would be sealed. The wall of Asgard loomed tall and nearly whole. By the last nights of winter, only the gateway remained unfinished. The stones stood gleaming in frost. Each one fitted so tightly, no blade of grass could slip between them. The gods stood in silence, staring at the rising fortress that promised both safety and doom. Freyja shivered, her voice bitter. The walls that should protect me will be my prison. When the sun rises on summer, I will be dragged to a giant's hall. Thröthda struck Mjolnir against the ramparts, thunder cracking in answer. I will not allow it. Let the oath burn. I will smash him before he touches you. But Odin raised his hand, his voice low. Our word is our bond. If we break it now, we are no better than liars. Yet, if he succeeds, his voice faltered, rare uncertainty darkening his tone. Tyr spoke grimly. Then Asgard will pay. The sun, the moon, and Freyja, the heart of our realm. Without them, even these walls will be useless. The builder worked on, tireless, his hammer ringing, his stallions draining. Each stone fell into place, like a heartbeat of doom. His ember eyes glowed with determination, for victory was within reach. The gods felt the noose tighten. To pay his price was unthinkable, but to deny it would shatter their honor. They were trapped between doom and shame, and in the shadows, Loki watched with clenched jaw. His jest had turned into a snare, and now the builder's triumph would be his ruin. As well, the last night of winter approached. The threat of payment was no longer distant. It was at their very gates, the night before the last day of winter. The gods convened in Gladsheim. The hall thundered not with laughter but with rage. Thorth was first to speak, his voice booming like a storm. Enough of this cursed bargain. Loki's tongue brought this doom upon us. It was his counsel that bound us to an oath we cannot bear. Let us cast him out, or let me strike him down. He lunged forward, Mjolnir raised, lightning sparking across the roof beams. Only Odin's command restrained him. Freyja rose, her eyes burning with tears and fury. You played with my fate, trickster! You set me like bait before a beast. And now you laugh while I tremble. If I am taken, Loki, my curse shall follow you to the end of days. Even Tyr, steadfast in honor, scowled. You spoke of cunning, but your jest has chained us. You boast of wit, yet it has brought us to ruin. Heimdall leaned forward, his voice sharp. If Loki has any loyalty to Asgard, he must undo what he has done. If he fails, the gods will fall upon him before they fall to the giant. At last, Odin spoke, his tone colder than frost. Loki, son of Laufey, you gave us this counsel. Now you will bear its burden. By oath of the Aesir, you shall save Asgard from this doom, or suffer wrath greater than any giant could bring. The hall shook with cries of assent. Even the walls seemed to echo with their fury. Loki stood, pale but smiling thinly, his hands spread in mock courtesy. So be it. You call me trickster, serpent, liar. Perhaps I am all these things. But know this, I will not let Asgard fall. The builder will fail not by your strength, but by my cunning. His eyes gleamed with something darker than mirth. But remember, when I succeed, it will be through deceit, and deceit always leaves its mark. The gods fell silent, their anger cooled only by necessity. Their hope now lay in the very one they despised. And Loki, though outwardly confident, felt the weight of their fury like chains upon his shoulders. The council's fury echoed. Long after the shouting ceased, the gods looked upon Loki with eyes of fire and scorn, and even his quick tongue could not jest his way free. At last, the trickster stood alone in the center of the hall, every gaze pressing down on him like chains. Odin's voice cut through the silence. You bound us to this oath, Loki. Now you must unbind it. If Asgard falls to shame, it shall be your doom before any others. Thirster growled, lightning still simmering in his beard. Fell us, and I will break every bone in your body, no matter what oath forbids. Freyja, pale but fierce, whispered with venom. If I am forced into chains, Loki, your name will be cursed for all eternity. Loki spread his hands in mock surrender, a thin smile curving his lips. So the fate of gods rests on my shoulders? Very well. You demand salvation, and salvation you shall have. But remember, strength cannot win this battle. Only cunning can. Tyr spat. Cunning is what doomed us. Loki's eyes flashed. Then cunning will free us. The builder's hands may never tire. His horse may never falter. But even the mightiest beast can be undone. I will see to it. The gods exchanged wary glances. They hated him, but they had no other hope. Heimdall spoke, his voice sharp. Swear it, Loki. Swear upon the well of Erd that you will save Asgard. For a moment, Loki hesitated. To swear upon the Norn's well was no small thing. It bound even tricksters. Yet he saw no choice. He raised his hand. By the well of Erd, by the threads of fate, I pledge, the builder shall not win. Asgard will not pay his price. A heavy silence followed. Odin's gaze narrowed, but he nodded. So it is bound. Fail, and you are forfeit. Loki bowed low, a grin stretching across his face. Then watch, my lords and ladies. You shall see how lies may save even truth. The night fell cold and silent. The builder labored still, his hammer striking sparks in the dark, while Svadilfari dragged stones across the frozen plain. The wall was almost whole. Only a few nights remained before victory. But far from the firelight of the gods' halls, Loki stood alone beneath the trees. His oath burned in his mind. For all his tricks, all his lies, he had sworn upon the Norn's well, and such a vow could not be broken. He paced the snow, his thoughts twisting like smoke. The giant cannot be stopped. But the stallion, yes, the stallion is the heart of his strength. Break the beast and the wall will falter. Closing his eyes, Loki whispered words of old magic, words older than the walls themselves. His skin rippled, his bones shifted, his voice broke into whinnies and breath. Where once stood the trickster god, there now stood a mare, sleek and dark, her mane shining like night. Her eyes still gleaming with cunning. The transformation left him trembling, for to take the form of a beast was no small task. Yet necessity drove him on. He stamped his hooves, testing his new body, then raised his head toward the plain where Svadilfari labored. From afar, the builder shouted, urging his stallion on. The great horse's breath came heavy, its muscles taut with endless strength. But Loki, now a mare, stepped from the shadows with a soft, lilting whinny. Svadilfari's ears pricked, its great head lifted. For the first time since the building began, the stallion paused. The builder frowned, tugging at the reins. But Loki's call rang again, sweet and inviting, carrying through the frozen air. The stallion strained, torn between duty and desire. The builder cursed, yanking at the harness. But Svadilfari stamped the ground, tossing his mane, eyes fixed upon the mysterious mare in the shadows. And so Loki's plan began. The trickster had become bait, his body sacrificed to lure away the one creature whose strength could doom them all. The snow-laden night lay heavy upon the plains of Asgard. The builder, sweat steaming from his brow, drove Svadilfari forward, the stallion straining against its harness as it hauled another massive boulder. The wall loomed tall now, its crown awaiting only a few stones. But from the shadows of the forest, a sound broke the night, a low, sweet whinny. Svadilfari froze, ears flicking. Its breath hissed in clouds, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Again the whinny rose, soft as a song, beckoning. From between the trees stepped a dark mare, sleek and graceful, her mane gleaming in the moonlight. She moved lightly, head tossing, eyes flashing with promise. It was Loki. The builder cursed, pulling hard at the reins. Come, beast. Ignore it, there are stones yet to haul. He tugged, but Svadilfari reared, pouring at the earth. The stallion's great muscles rippled, its body trembling with desire stronger than command. The mare whinnied again, circling slowly, her tail flicking like a banner. She darted deeper into the woods, pausing to look back, inviting, daring. Svadilfari strained against his harness, hooves gouging furrows in the frozen ground. No, the builder roared. He fought the reins, but the stallion snapped them with a single violent jerk. With a scream of longing, Svadilfari galloped after the mare, vanishing into the trees. The builder staggered, furious. Alone, he stumbled after, but the forest swallowed them both. Hoofs thundered in the night, a chase wild and desperate, far from stone and wall. And so the fate of Asgard turned upon a trickster's seduction. When the forest thundered with hooves, vanishing deeper into shadow. The builder gave chase, but no mortal or giant could match Svadilfari's speed, nor the cunning of Loki. The night was lost to pursuit, the stallion lured away from its duty. At dawn, the builder returned alone, his chest heaved with fury, his ember eyes burning with hate. But the wall still stood unfinished, its last stones, waiting. Without Svadilfari, he could not move the boulders. His hands, mighty though they were, faltered against the weight. The gods gathered to watch. For the first time, hope glimmered among them. Thor laughed aloud, slamming Mjolnir against his palm. At last! The giant falters, the gods whispered among themselves. Tyr said, our honor holds, for he fails of his own weakness. Heimdall nodded. The Norns have turned the thread in our favor. But the builder, in his rage, no longer hid his nature. He tore at stones, roaring curses in the tongue of Jotunheim, his face twisted, his body swelling, the mask of a mortal craftsman shattering. Before their eyes he revealed himself for what he was, a giant. The gods drew back, their hands on weapons. Freyja cried out in dread. Thor's eyes blazed with fire, and Odin, grim but resolute, spoke, "So it is revealed. A foe stood among us all along." 2. The builder had lost his bargain, but his fury had only begun. The moment the stallion was lost, the builder's mask began to crack. His calm, measured face twisted with fury. His skin darkened like stone, and his ember eyes blazed brighter than coals. No longer could he hide his blood. He was a Jotun, a giant of Jotunheim, enemy of the gods. He hurled stones with his bare hands, his roars shaking the unfinished wall. "You tricked me!" he bellowed. "You set impossible terms, then stole my strength away. I will not leave empty-handed. I will take Asgard by force." The gods gathered upon the ramparts. Freyja shrank back, clutching her cloak. Tyr and Heimdall drew their weapons, steel gleaming in the pale dawn. But it was Thor who stepped forward, his eyes blazing with stormfire, Mjolnir already in his grasp. The builder's true form towered over them, taller than the wall itself, his muscles like mountain ridges, his voice like thunder. He tore stones from the ground and hurled them at the gates, each impact shaking Asgard's halls. The gods shouted in alarm, but Odin raised his hand. "Peace!" let Thor answer him. The giant sneered, baring teeth sharp as blades. "You weaklings thought to outwit me. Now your realm will fall before it is even born." But in his fury, the builder forgot what all giants feared. The hammer of Thor, the ground shook as the giant roared, hurling stone after stone against the walls of Asgard. But Thor was already striding forward, Mjolnir glowing with lightning in his fist. "Giant," Thor thundered, "you dare raise your hand against Asgard? You dare lay claim to Freyja, the sun, and the moon? Then hear my oath. I will smash your skull so the mountains ring with it." The giant roared and swung a boulder the size of a hall. Thor leapt aside, the stone shattering the earth where he had stood. With a cry, the thunder god hurled Mjolnir. It struck the giant's arm with a crack like worlds breaking. Bone shattered, flesh split, the boulder fell useless to the ground. The builder staggered, bellowing in rage. He raised his other arm, but Thor was already upon him, with a leap higher than the wall itself. Thor brought Mjolnir down upon the giant's skull. The strike split it wide, and fire burst from the wound. The giant collapsed, his body crashing against the stones he had raised, toppling his own work. The gods roared in triumph. Freyja wept with relief. Odin's eye gleamed with grim satisfaction. For the oath was broken by the builder's own rage. Now vengeance was just. Threthur stood over the fallen giant, chest heaving, lightning crackling across his shoulders. "Thus fall all foes of Asgard," he shouted, his voice echoing to the farthest reaches of the 9 realms. The wall still stood, though broken in places. But the giant was no more, and the gods were freed from his bargain. In the silence that followed, only Mjolnir's faint thunder rolled, like the heartbeat of Asgard itself. Far from Asgard's shining walls, deep in the forests where snow still clung to the branches, Loki ran, no longer the trickster in his usual guise, but a mare, sleek and dark, his hooves flashing as he galloped across the frozen earth. Behind him thundered the sound of pursuit, Svadilfari, the mighty stallion driven wild with desire. The chase carried them over hills and rivers, through shadowed valleys and across icy plains. Loki's mane streamed like midnight. His eyes gleamed with cunning, even in this borrowed form. He darted left then right, leaping fallen trees, weaving through thickets. Yet always the stallion followed, untiring, driven by the trickster's call. Night after night, the chase continued. The builder cursed in fury when his beast did not return, but Svadilfari cared nothing. for stone or oath. Its heart was bound to the Mare, who lured it away. And Loki, caught in his own scheme, felt the strange pull of the guise he had taken. No longer was this merely deception. It became entanglement. He whinnied, lured, and fled, yet in his new body the chase awakened instincts he had never known. For once, Loki's jest had run away with him. In Asgard, the gods rejoiced at the builder's failure, yet none asked where Loki had gone. Odin alone suspected. He stroked his beard in silence, his single eye glimmering with the weight of foresight. Thus Loki, trickster and liar, raced deeper into the woods with the stallion, beginning a journey that would shape fate in ways no god yet imagined. Seasons turned, and winter gave way to spring. The builder lay dead, the walls half-finished yet strong, and the gods returned to their revels. But Loki did not appear among them. Weeks passed before he stumbled back into Asgard, haggard, pale, and strangely silent. For Loki carried with him something none expected, a foal, sleek and grey. Its coat shone like steel in the sun. But what set it apart were its 8 legs, each moving with uncanny grace, each step swifter than the wind. The gods gathered in astonishment. Thor barked a laugh, slapping his thigh. "Ha! So this is the fruit of your cunning, Loki? You fled as a mare and returned as a mother." Freyja smirked coldly. "Fitting, perhaps, that your trickery breeds monsters." But Odin stepped forward, his one eye glowing. He looked upon the foal with solemn awe. "Not a monster, a gift. For this steed shall outpace the wind, run across sea and sky, and carry me where none else may tread." The foal nuzzled Loki's side, its 8 legs dancing restlessly. Though born of deceit and trickery, it bore the spark of destiny. The gods murmured uneasily, yet none could deny the beauty and power of the strange creature. Loki, still weary, only shrugged, muttering, "A jest gone further than I intended." But Odin named the foal Sleipnir and laid his hand upon its brow. "This is my steed. With it I shall ride the 9 realms. None shall outrun us." Thus was born Sleipnir, the swiftest, strangest, and greatest of all horses, destined to bear the Allfather into battles and journeys. Untold, the foal trotted uncertainly upon its 8 legs, yet even in its youth it moved with a grace no horse had ever known. Each step was light as air, each stride longer than any mortal beast could manage. Though it was born of trickery, it radiated a strange majesty, as though fate itself had shaped it. Loki, weary and pale, led the foal before the gods. He said little, his usual smirk absent. The gods muttered among themselves, some mocking, some in awe, some fearful of what such a creature meant. "Risito!" But Odin stepped forward, his one eye gleaming with recognition. He looked upon the foal as though he had been waiting for it all along. Placing his hand upon its brow, he whispered words. Only the horse and the winds could hear. The foal stilled, then nuzzled against him, as if it had always belonged to the Allfather. Odin turned to the Aesir. "This is no accident, no curse. Sleipnir is a gift to the gods. Though born of deceit, it shall be mine. My steed to carry me between worlds." Threthda laughed boisterously, clapping Loki on the back hard enough to make him stagger. "So, trickster, your folly has birthed our Allfather's new horse. Who would have guessed?" Freyja, though still bitter, could not deny the foal's beauty. "At least from your shame, Loki, comes something wondrous." Loki only muttered, "I meant no gift," but his eyes glinted faintly. For though he had suffered mockery, he knew this strange creation would forever tie him to the Allfather's journeys. And so, with Odin's hand upon its mane, Sleipnir was given as a gift, both burden and blessing. From trickster to king, time passed and the foal grew into its full strength. Sleipnir's legs, 8 in all, moved with impossible speed. When it galloped, it seemed not to touch the ground at all, but to skim the air like a storm wind. Its coat shimmered grey as steel. Its mane flowed like silver fire. Odin mounted Sleipnir for the first time, and the earth itself trembled. With a cry, he spurred the horse forward. In a blur, Sleipnir carried him across the plains of Asgard. Faster than lightning, swifter than thought. The gods gasped, for no steed had ever borne such power. Then Odin urged it further. Sleipnir ran across the sea, its hooves striking waves as though they were stone. It leapt into the sky, galloping through the clouds, carrying its rider to the very edge of the heavens. "Behold!" Odin shouted, his voice booming like thunder. "This is the steed of the Allfather, the swiftest of all beings. No wall, no sea, no sky shall bar my way again," the Aesir roared in triumph. Even Thor's laughter boomed with pride, and Freyja's lips curved into a smile. Loki, standing at the edge, only smirked faintly, hiding his weariness behind a mask of amusement. He knew that Sleipnir would forever be remembered not as a curse, but as a wonder, and that his own role, though mocked, was bound to this legacy. From that day on, Sleipnir became the horse of the 9 realms. It bore Odin not only across Asgard, but into Jotunheim, Alfheim, Niflheim, and even to Hel itself. It could outrun death, outpace storms, and leap between worlds. Though born of trickery, Sleipnir became the very symbol of Odin's might, his constant companion. His steed of destiny, Sleipnir was no ordinary horse. It was born of trickery, yet marked by fate. From the first day Odin rode him, it was clear the stallion was destined to play a role far beyond Asgard's walls. With 8 legs, Sleipnir's gallop outpaced the winds themselves. No sea could drown him, no mountain could slow him, no darkness could overtake him. He was as much spirit as flesh, a creature belonging to all 9 realms at once. His hooves rang like thunder, his mane streamed like silver fire, and his eyes glowed with a wisdom deeper than beasts should bear. Odin cherished him above all treasures. "With this steed," he said to the Aesir, "no boundary can bind me. I shall ride to Jotunheim, to strike fear in giants. I shall ride to Hel, to command the dead, and when Ragnarök comes, Sleipnir shall carry me into the storm of doom." The gods listened in awe. Even Thor, proud of his hammer, admitted that no weapon or tool could rival such a gift. Freyja called Sleipnir a wonder of the cosmos. Only Loki smiled faintly in the shadows, for he knew the horse was both his shame and his triumph. Sleipnir became more than Odin's steed. He was the Allfather's companion, his vessel between worlds, his mount for destiny. Though the builder had fallen beneath Thor's hammer, his work did not vanish. Much of the wall already stood. Strong and unyielding, the Aesir, with their own hands, finished what the giant had begun. Stone by stone, they raised the last battlements until the fortress of Asgard was whole. When the final stone was set, the gods gathered upon the ramparts. Before them stretched a wall so high no giant could climb it, so thick no army could break it. The gates gleamed, carved with runes of warding, and towers crowned the corners like watchful eyes. Heimdall, guardian of the Bifrost, placed his hand upon the stones. "These walls shall stand against storm and fire until the end of days." His vow bound them as firmly as magic. Threstor struck the ramparts with Mjolnir, lightning coursing through the stones. Let any giant test them if he dares. Freyja stood tall, free of the chains that had haunted her dreams. The sun and moon shone bright in the sky above, their light safe within the heavens. Even Odin, grave and far-seeing, allowed himself a nod of satisfaction. Asgard is no longer naked. These walls are our shield. But remember, they are also a reminder of what bargains cost. His single eye glinted, warning as much as blessing. The gods feasted that night, their joy ringing across the halls. Yet in their hearts they knew the truth. Though the walls stood strong, they had been born of lies, blood, and trickery. Their stones were as much a warning as a defense. Still, Asgard gleamed in triumph, its golden halls encircled at last by walls that would endure until Ragnarok itself. For many moons, Freyja had lived under the shadow of dread. She had dreamt of chains binding her hands, of being dragged to a hall not her own, her beauty twisted into a prize of war. Every stone laid upon the wall had weighed upon her heart. But now the builder was dead, his bargain broken. The walls stood complete, and no claim bound her. At last, she walked the ramparts of Asgard not as a captive to be, but as a goddess, free. The Aesir gathered around her, offering words of relief. Thor clasped her shoulder with brotherly pride, vowing that none would ever threaten her again, while Mjolnir remained in his hand. Tyr bowed, admitting that her anguish had been heavier cost than any oath. Even Heimdall, ever watchful, offered a rare smile, saying, "The gates stand tall, and you are safe within them. No shadow shall cross without my seeing." But Freyja's gaze turned to Loki, who lingered in the shadows. Her voice was sharp. "You set me upon the scales, trickster. My freedom was a gamble in your game. Do not think I will forget." Loki bowed with mocking grace, though his eyes flickered with something like regret. "Yet you are free, Freyja, and Asgard stands stronger than before. A jest costly, yes, but fruitful." Freyja turned away, her golden necklace Brisingame gleaming in the sunlight. "Perhaps, but never again will I be weighed as a coin in your schemes." The gods raised a feast in her honor that night. She walked among them radiant, her laughter returning at last, though her heart bore scars unseen. Her freedom had been won, but it had shown all the Aesir the price of bargains and the weight of oaths. While Freyja had feared chains, the sun and moon themselves had trembled under the builder's bargain. For if his price had been paid, they would have been stolen from the heavens, leaving Midgard cold and dark. Now, with the pact broken, Seng's shone brighter than before, her chariot blazing across the sky, golden rays spilling warmth upon the earth. Máni, her brother, rode the night with renewed strength, his silver glow painting the forests and seas. The gods gathered to watch their courses, marveling at the brilliance of the sky. Bragi, god of poetry, raised his harp and sang. "The sun is ours, the moon is ours, their light unchained, their path restored." His song wove joy into every heart. Mortals in Midgard felt the blessing as well. Crops lifted their heads to the sun, rivers gleamed with moonlight, and lovers whispered vows beneath silver beams. Odin lifted his gaze, one eye gleaming. "Let this be remembered. Asgard's walls stand not at the cost of the sky's fire, but alongside it. The heavens remain free, and so too do we." Even Thor smiled as he watched the sun, saying, "At least the bargain bought us walls, and not darkness." And Loki, smirking faintly, muttered, "Light and trickery, both return in the end." Thus the sun and moon rejoiced, their light no longer threatened, their paths secured until the world's end. The walls of Asgard stood tall. Freyja was free, and the sun and moon blazed unhindered. By all accounts, the gods had triumphed, yet within their halls, unease lingered, for their salvation had come not from honor, nor from valor, but from Loki's deceit. At the feast, the Aesir raised golden goblets in victory. Thor boomed with laughter, striking the table so hard the cups rattled. A fine jest, trickster. Strange though it was. You spared Freyja and saved the sun and moon. Perhaps your mischief is not all poison. Tyr, however, scowled. Saved, yes, but at what price? Our honor was mocked, our word nearly broken. What will the Nine Realms say when they hear Asgard was rescued? Not by courage, but by trickery. Freyja lifted her cup, but did not drink. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. I am free, yet I was bartered like coin. I will not thank the hand that gambled with me, even if it won. Even Odin, grave and thoughtful, spoke cautiously. Your cunning turned fate's tide, Loki. For this, Asgard is safer. Yet remember, trickery breeds mistrust, and mistrust weakens walls as surely as cracks in stones. Loki raised his own goblet, smirking faintly. And yet, without trickery, your walls would be your tomb. You call me liar, deceiver, serpent, but tonight you feast because of me. The gods muttered among themselves. Some cheered him, some cursed him, none could forget his role. Gratitude warred with suspicion, relief with resentment. Thus Loki sat at the feast, both honored and despised, both praised and condemned. For the Aesir knew they owed him thanks, and feared what? Such cunning might cost them in the days to come. When the revels quieted and the torches burned low, Odin called the gods to council once more. Let us speak plainly, he said. We are strong, but not invincible. The giant showed us that brute force can be turned against us. It was not strength, but deceit that saved Asgard. We must learn from this, or fall to it again. The gods shifted uneasily. Tyr spoke first. Deceit is a weapon unworthy of the Aesir. Honor must be our shield. But Odin shook his head. Honor alone will not preserve us. I have seen Ragnarök in my visions. When the end comes, it will not be honor that delays it, but cunning. Heimdall nodded reluctantly. Even the watchman uses trickery. False alarms to test the guard, hidden paths to trap foes. Perhaps deception is not dishonor, but another kind of strength. Thor bristled. I have no need of lies when Mjolnir can answer any challenge. Loki leaned forward, his smile sharp. Yet your hammer did not save you this time, Thunderer. It was my guile that turned the tide. Deception is power as sharp as any blade. The gods murmured, torn. Some despised the thought, others admitted its truth. Odin ended the debate with final words. Strength builds walls, honor guards them, but cunning fills the cracks that neither can mend. We must wield all three, or Asgard will fall. Thus, the gods learned an uneasy lesson that deception, though dangerous, was also necessary. And though they mistrusted Loki, they could not forget that his lies had saved them, when truth could not. With the walls of Asgard complete, the gods walked proudly upon the ramparts. They looked down from towers of stone, at the Nine Realms spread beneath them. The golden halls gleamed within their mighty fortress, and for the first time since Asgard's founding, they felt secure. But Heimdall, ever watchful, was not at ease. Guardian of the Bifrost, his sight pierced farther than any other god's, his ears caught whispers. Standing at the great gates, Jallarhorn at his side, he traced the horizon with narrowed eyes. At council he spoke, his voice solemn. These walls are strong, but they are not eternal. Giants will return, Nemes will test us. And when Ragnarök comes, no stone, no rune, no oath will keep doom from crossing these gates. The gods stirred uneasily. Thor grumbled that no foe could breach what his hammer defended. Freyja shivered, remembering how near she had come to chains. Tyr admitted grimly, honor binds us, but fate binds tighter. Hurig Tutengabri. Even Odin, though silent, nodded, for he had seen Ragnarök in vision. the fire of Surtra, the wolf Fenrir snapping chains, the walls collapsing as though they had never stood. Heimdall placed his hand upon the stones. They will serve us for a time, but we must not mistake stone for salvation. When the end comes, it is not walls but courage that will stand. The gods fell silent at his words. The walls gleamed around them, yet already they felt smaller, temporary, a bulwark against storms that would one day break. Beyond Asgard's shining walls, at the roots of Yggdrasil, the Norns sat by the well of Erd. They wove threads of fate with quiet hands, their voices like whispers carried by the wind. When the war was finished, their song shifted. The stones rise high, the gods rejoice, yet fate remains. No wall can bind destiny, no oath can silence time. Erd, eldest, spoke. The past brought these walls, born of trickery and toil. Verdandi, middle, answered. The present gleams with safety, but shadows coil. Skuld, youngest, whispered. The future is written still. Fire, wolf, and ruin shall pass through these gates. Their voices carried across the Mine realms, heard in dreams and visions. Mortals awoke trembling, sensing doom even amidst peace. Odin, listening in thought, bowed his head. He had long known their truth, yet hearing it sung anew tightened the weight upon his shoulders. Loki too heard the whispers, though he laughed bitterly. Even the Norns cannot resist mocking me, he muttered, knowing his trickery had built both salvation and doom. The Aesir gathered, troubled. But the Norns' song was not only of endings, they also sang of renewal. What falls shall rise, what ends shall begin again. From the breaking of walls, new paths shall grow. Thus the gods learned. Their walls were strong, but only for a season. Fate moved ever forward, weaving doom and hope in equal measure. And so the voices of the Norns wove themselves into the very stones of Asgard's wall, an unseen reminder that destiny cannot be stopped, only lived. Long after the giant's death and the wall's completion, the gods told and retold the story of its making. Yet every telling circled back to one name, Loki. Some praised him. Had he not deceived the builder, we would have lost Freyja, the sun, and the moon, said Thor when Ale loosened his tongue. His trick saved us all, though I would sooner swallow fire than say it. Others cursed him. Freyja scorned his gamble, declaring, I was treated as coin in a game. Let no one forget who bartered my fate. Tyre, steadfast as always, warned. Deceit is no foundation for peace. The walls stand, but trust in Loki crumbles. Mortals, too, remembered. Skuld sang of the cunning trickster who took the form of a mare, luring away a stallion mighty as mountains. Their songs painted him both hero and villain, savior and deceiver. In taverns, some raised cups to Loki's wit, while others spat his name in contempt. Even Odin, who rode Sleipnir across realms, spoke with caution. The trickster gave me my steed, swiftest of all creatures, yet it came at the cost of trust. So must we remember both gift and flaw. Teened. Thus Loki's name was bound forever to the wall. He was remembered not in triumph or disgrace alone, but in the tangled weave of both. For that was Loki's way, never one thing, never the other, but always the shadow between. And so the trickster was remembered. His legacy as strong and uncertain as the walls themselves. The walls of Asgard rose high, gleaming white in sun and moonlight, crowned with towers, carved with runes. They stood as the pride of the Aesir, strong and unyielding. Yet even as the gods boasted of their strength, whispers stirred. Walls, like all things, do not last forever. Odin alone had seen their fate. In visions from Mimir's well, he had glimpsed Ragnarök, the fire of Surtra leaping higher than towers, the wolf, Fenrir bursting chains, the walls crumbling like sand before the tide. Even the greatest stone could not outlast destiny. Still, the walls served their purpose. For ages they shielded Asgard from giants and beasts, from storms and war. Mortals looked to them in stories as the symbol of divine might. To children, they were the fortress that even time envied. To poets, they were the white crown of the gods. Yet with each telling, a warning was whispered: even walls fall. Heimdall walked the ramparts tirelessly, watchful against threats. Thor laughed that no foe could breach them, while his hammer stood ready. Freyja took comfort in their strength, though the memory of her near fate never left her. Loki, when asked, only smiled. Strong walls make strong stories, and stories last longer than stone. So the walls became not only a shield but a lesson. Pride may rise high, but fate rises higher. Still, and though they would one day crumble, their tale lived on. A story of bargains and blood, trickery and thunder, of gods saved not only by strength but by deceit. Thus the walls of Asgard stood in time, awaiting their place in the circle of fate. The walls of Asgard stood tall, gleaming in the sunlight, crowned with runes and towers. They were the pride of the gods, the shield of their realm, the fruit of labor, trickery, and blood. Yet, even as they stood unbroken, the Aesir knew a truth whispered in every stone. All things have their season. From his high seat, Odin gazed upon the walls, Sleipnir stamping at his side. The All-Father's single eye had seen farther than stone could stand. He knew that in the end, flames would leap higher than towers, wolves would leap stronger than gates, and these very stones would crack and fall at Ragnarok. Still he did not despair, for walls are not built to last forever, but to give strength to those within them until their time is done. Threthur strode along the battlements, boasting that no giant would breach them while he lived. Freyja, free and radiant, walked the ramparts with pride, though the memory of her near loss lingered like a shadow. Heimdall kept his vigil Gjallarhorn ready, knowing one day it would sound across these stones. Loki stood apart, a sly smile on his lips. He knew that his trick had shaped both salvation and doom, and that his name would be tied to these walls until the end of days. And the Norns, far at the roots of Yggdrasil, wove the last threads of this tale. Iko, what is built shall fall, what falls shall rise. The circle turns, unbroken. Thus the story of Asgard's walls was sealed. Not as a tale of stone alone, but of choice, of bargains, of pride, and of cunning. The walls would one day crumble, but the story would endure, passed in song and memory, echoing across the 9 realms, until time itself was renewed. For in the end, the circle of fate is eternal, and so our tale closes. The building of Asgard's mighty walls, born of need, sealed by oaths, threatened by trickery, and saved by deceit. What began as fear of giants became a story of bargains too costly, of a trickster's cunning turned into destiny, and of a horse unlike any other, Sleipnir, the steed of the Allfather. From these walls we learn a truth. Strength alone is not enough, nor honor, nor cunning, but all must walk together if a realm is to endure. The stones of Asgard stood for ages, yet even they were not eternal. They remind us that no wall, no fortress, no pride can outlast the turning of fate. But while they stood, they gave courage, unity, and hope. And perhaps that is what walls and stories are truly for. As you leave this tale, remember the circle of fate. What is built will fall, what falls will rise, and each ending is but another beginning. Let this saga echo in your spirit, that courage and cunning, light and shadow, strength and frailty are all part of the same great weave. Thank you for walking this journey. Until the circle turns again, farewell